Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan, and today I will be discussing the Runelords series. This isn't going to be necessarily a book or review, but it's going to be a discussion of the overall series. The reason I picked this series to do as my first series discussion is because I really don't see many videos on BookTube talking about this book series, and that is a crying shame. The Runelords is best-selling books. The third book, Wizardborn, reached the New York Times list, so the book series is fairly wide-read, but not in such a way that it is talked about a lot, especially recently. I think part of the reason for this is because the author has not finished the final book, and it's been several years. I think the other reason is this isn't a series that got picked up by anything for adaptation-wise. It never got picked up by a certain trend like Book Talk or BookTube or anything. So as a result, it's just not well known. But I personally love it. It is one of my top 5 favorite fantasy series. There's no books in it that blow me away, but each book is very good, which is just enough to make the whole series just well worth your while, I believe. The books started with The Runelords, which was also originally released under the title The Sum of All Men. It was this particular book, and this is my favorite book in the series. It is so well done, and over the course of this review, I'm going to talk about the magic system, the main characters, the overview of what the world is like, and things like that. And then I'll talk about which books are my favorites and least favorites and things like that. So to begin with, the Runelords is a very interesting magic system. It's one of the earlier hard magic systems. The first book was released in, I believe, 1997 or 1998, and it has this magic system that is mostly based on endowments. The idea that I have a trait such as maybe my wit, and I can endow my wit to you, and thus you will be able to use my wit. But as a result, if I give you my endowment of wit, I no longer have it, and so I become a fool. Or I could give you an endowment of stamina, and you become stronger, and you can do physical activity for longer, but as a result, I can barely move around, and I have to have two people take care of me. And you're in this world where endowments, there are some people that use them because they're necessary, and some kings and leaders who value them, and then there are other people who are very much against it, almost religiously against it, who believe that it is wrong to take an endowment from another person, to steal something, or even if it's given willingly, to take something away from that person. And so this is a very much a hard magic system. David Farland, also his pen name is David Wolverton, he goes through in detail in this book series what the magic is like. If you like hard magic systems, you will like the Runelords. And one of the great things about the Runelords with its magic system is that you're constantly learning about it. You understand it from very early on in the first book, but he's always giving you a little bit more insight. You see how the people who take the endowment, how they feel. You see how the people who give the endowment, how they feel. How the people, the bystanders, how there's certain objects that you use to transfer to make it easier, quicker transfer the endowments. All very interesting magical pieces of the world. Another part of this series that is most excellent is its characters. You have certain characters like Gaborn Valorden. He is the main character, particularly of the first 4 books, and he is I won't give any spoilers in this, but he is a prince of one of the kingdoms, and he is set to marry a princess from one of the other kingdoms, and all hell breaks loose when an enemy named Raj Aten launches an attack, and the journey that Gaborn goes through is fantastic. The journey that the princess Iome Silveresta goes through is fantastic. She's a very strong character while still fitting into a lot of the fantasy tropes of what princesses are like. She kind of toes that edge. Then you have someone named Marima. Marima is very interesting because she's introduced to be almost this damsel in distress character, and she's essentially trying to win over Gaborn because she comes from a lowly family, and yet she becomes one of the best warriors, the best soldiers, one of the best leaders in the entire book series. And she is just so much fun to follow in the book series, and she has a lot of revealed about her, which is very interesting. And she has a moment in the series that I think is my single favorite moment in the entire fantasy series, and is a standout top moment of all fantasy for me. Her character work is great. And then you have Sir Borenson, and if you've seen my other book reviews, I've talked about characters who go through a lot. Man, does Sir Borenson go through a lot in this series. He has it tough, but he is strong. He perseveres. He shows lots of patience in the books. He shows lots of perseverance, loyalty, and dedication to his craft. He shows courage throughout. He displays the traits that you want in a good soldier and a good captain of your army. And he is just such a great person to follow. You also have, as I mentioned, Raj Aten, who to me is one of the best fantasy villains that I've ever read, because he is very understandable. He wants power and he wants leadership. And to him, the types of things that he's willing to go through to get that power is very understandable. He takes endowments from his people. He doesn't just take the willing people, he forces them to. But in his mind, he's conquering lands. He's making his empire amazing. And so in his mind, it's all worth it. And that's why his people are okay with what he does, and also he becomes so powerful. You see the way he levels up his power. It's almost like a video game, the way that sometimes the characters level up in something. Oh, you have 2 stamina, now you have 3 stamina, now you have 4 beauty, now you have 5 wit, and you see him level up and become this massive villain, and that he's particularly in the first 4 books. And I just found him to be fascinating, and I found him to be compelling and yet scary and horrifying. And he was very fun to follow. And then you have a little character called Averon. And I really have to tiptoe here because I don't want to give spoilers with her. But she is a little girl who becomes a main character in the series. And she is just a delight to read because she provides that little child's eyes, the fresh eyes to the world. All these other characters are used to everything that you see. They're used to all of the magic system and stuff. But Averon is not, and so she's just learning about what things can do and learning about some of the villains in the series, and her story arc is just fantastic. And there are many more characters I could get into, but it would be spoilers, and I want to keep this spoiler free. Another thing I want to discuss is kind of the pacing. As you'll notice, the first 3 books are fairly long, and then the rest of the books, they get quite a bit shorter. Unfortunately, I haven't collected all of the same type of book, so I've collected a lot of the paperbacks, but I also have some of the hardcovers. And the first few books are 600, 700 pages, and then they dip down to 400, and then they even dip down to 300. The first 4 books feel like an arc of Wheel of Time. They really, especially if you include the artwork and the writing style and the era that it came out, I really equate this to Wheel of Time. But as you get into the shorter books that are more standalone, like the book that is Sons of the Oak, when you get into some of the books such as Worldbinder and The Wormling Horde, those books read more like Shannara than they do like Wheel of Time. Because they're shorter, they're more compact, there's not quite as many characters that you're following, the story arcs tend to be more self-contained, so those books, the changes halfway through the series, and yet I really like both. I particularly love the first 4 books in the series, the Runelords, Brotherhood of the Wolf, Wizardborn. I have 2 copies of that one. And then also The Lair of Bones. All 4 of those books are just fantastic. They are so well done. And what's interesting is that they are complete. You don't need to read further. This Lair of Bones produces a fantastic end to the series. And I almost wonder if maybe he should have ended it there. But Wormling Horde and Worldbinder and Sons of the Oak are also great. I am currently working on the most recently released book, Chaos Bound, which I hope to finish soon, and I will have a book review of that when I finish that. And we're still waiting on the final book, A Tale of Tales, which is meant to tie everything up. And the last I've seen is the author said he's 80% through with it, but that was about a little more than a year ago. I have not heard any more updates. I've contacted the author to try to see if I can get an update further from him. I know he's had some stuff to deal with recently, but still, I'm very much anticipating the final book. I am hoping it's going to be big and epic. I've been told it's going to really change the whole way that we view the series. But when we're talking about the books that have already been released, the Runelords books are all just a fantastic class in epic fantasy. And there is some... If you were a fan of a lot of modern fantasy, you will want to read this to get some context, because David Farland is the professor who taught Brandon Sanderson and Dan Wells and Brandon Mull and James Dashner. And so David Farland was teaching them at the time he was working on the first batch of books. So they were getting to learn about writing from him, and they are all the top writers in each of their genres right now. If not in writing style, for sure in the top selling. They all sell fantastic in each of their respective genres. And David Farland is the one who really taught them a lot of the skills. And so if you're looking for some context for that, I think you should read that. I do know that Brandon Sanderson has praised the magic system in these books, and I know a lot of fantasy fans now just care about the magic system. I think that the characters are what drive this book well enough, but I think that the magic system is also fantastic as well. It's probably my single favorite magic system. This series has my favorite magic system, my favorite villain, and some of my favorite relationships and characters. Story, it's not my favorite story. That's for other series, but it still has so many great elements, and so I highly recommend you check it out. But if you liked this video, please make sure to like it and to subscribe. Make sure to share it to your friends. Make sure to keep looking out for future videos, whether it's on Runelords or other fantasy books or other genres. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.